to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is Mark Erickson. Mark is an attorney, family law attorney, here in Campbell, California. Graduated with a JD degree from Santa Clara University School of Law in 1979. He was admitted to the California State Bar and U.S. District Court, Northern District of California in 1979, only yesterday. After working for another attorney, mostly in the area of civil and business litigation from 1979 to 1984, he founded his own law firm in 1985. He became a certified family law specialist by the Board of Legal Specialization of the State Bar of California in 1987. He has lectured and presented seminars for many groups, including a teaching assistant and guest lecturer at Santa Clara University School of Law. And on a more personal note, Mark enjoys playing ice hockey. So, Mark, welcome. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, as a family law lawyer, Mark is involved in divorce matters. And so today, we're going to be talking about the basics of child custody issues related to divorce in California. I call this Divorce California Style, sort of my little series that we're doing here. And before we get started, I just want to point out this is a complex area of law, and we want you to consult your own attorney. This is just sort of an introduction for a continuing conversation. Also, divorce laws vary among the states. So it's important that if you're in another state and you're watching this, that you get the details related to in your own area. So today, again, child custody, probably the most emotionally wrenching part of this whole process. Part of my thoughts in doing this sort of series of interviews that I'm doing with Mark is to point up to people, divorce isn't for sissies. This is difficult, and so when you think about this and the impact that it has on yourself, on your family, maybe you will think again and go back to the table and see if you can work things out. Sometimes people should get divorced. Sometimes there's abuse that's involved, there are other issues, and so, you know, we're certainly not here to judge, but we do favor families in general. Certainly for the most part, it's better for the children if the parents stay together. So, all right, how are child custody matters settled in divorce proceedings? We're getting started, Mark.
Well, broadly speaking, I guess there's two ways. One would be by settlement between two parties, and the other would be by having a judge actually make a decision. And there's a strong policy, public policy, promoting settlement, and so most people, given that policy, are given incentives during the course of a case to try and reach agreements. And most, maybe 95% plus of cases end up by being resolved by agreement without the court ever having to make a decision. So really two ways. You settle it on your own, or at some point a judge will resolve it for you.
Okay. So related to this, I understand there's different types of custody orders. So what types of custody orders are there?
Okay, well, first you look at the concept of which parent, or do both parents, make decisions about the child's health, education, and welfare. We call that legal custody, and typically, I'd say the vast majority of people end up having a joint legal custody order, which means that both parents are entitled to make decisions about the child's health, education, welfare. You can't imagine, if you haven't been through this, the sort of disputes people have about legal custody. But I've seen it come down to issues of which parent gets to decide how a child gets their hair cut or when they get their hair cut. Do they participate in Little League or Cub Scouts or not? Do they get to ride off-road motorcycles? And almost any type of decision that a parent would make in the context during a marriage, parents that are separated are at least at risk of having a dispute about it. There are some cases where the court will give one parent power to make certain decisions unilaterally without the other parent's participation, but that's relatively rare. That's in more extreme cases where parents really are unable to make decisions together.
Uh-huh.
Then beyond legal custody, then there's
Right.
the probably the more significant area where you see disputes, and that concerns physical custody.
Okay.
And so a court can make an order for joint physical custody, which is essentially roughly equal time sharing. So when we talk about physical custody, we're talking about where is the child at any particular time, which parent is the child actually living with. Joint physical, again, would be each parent having significant amounts of time with the children, which could be 50-50, but not necessarily exactly 50-50. Or you could have sole physical custody with visitation rights to the other parent. And both are common. I'd say these days it seems like joint physical and joint legal custody is probably the most common situation I see in my practice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. And we talked about sole as primary. Maybe you'd like to
Primary.
comment
Okay.
about that a little?
Yeah, sometimes parents, the only dispute they have is the label. Are they going to call this joint physical custody, or is one parent going to have physical custody and the other parent visitation rights? And I think often the parent who says they have visitation rights feels somewhat slighted, that maybe they're not as important or as significant in the child's life, and so they like to have that label joint physical custody. And so sometimes people come up with creative terms that are not necessarily in the family code to resolve it. So you'll see orders that will say primary physical custody to one parent and something else to the other parent, maybe some language other than using the words visitation rights, even though effectively it may be sole physical custody to one parent and visitation to the other. Sometimes that's done just to make things more palatable and achieve resolution by agreement, as opposed to having the parents go through a contested child custody proceeding in court.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, this should go without saying, but I'd like you to comment about it in general, and that is child custody a difficult issue for divorce?
Well, it's a difficult issue for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
I guess first and foremost, it's very difficult for the parents.
Yes.
It's one of those issues that people don't often let go of easily. In financial issues, rational people can look at them and say, gee, do I want to go to court and spend $20,000 going through a trial perhaps on a $5,000 issue? Well, most people would say, no, this needs to be resolved somehow. When it comes to child custody, it's hard for people to do that sort of evaluation where they really can look at it as a dollars and cents issue, and it's I think more difficult for people to resolve. It's also very difficult for children. We know that the effects of divorce on children are very significant, and perhaps that significance is exaggerated when parents are involved in serious custody litigation, because parents in high conflict, ongoing custody disputes, the children tend to know about it, even good parents that try and keep them out.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for children not to be aware of it, and they probably suffer as a result of being involved in that. And then on top of that, I think these are very difficult cases for judges to decide.